Hi, and welcome to Manned Up Conversations, where we connect with evolving men to discuss issues around masculinity and manhood, and also provide tools to help us be better for our society.
When we grew up, they used to say, "Mwana halela simo, mune." When the child says, "I want to touch that wood that's burning," within control, you might just want to let them touch it and feel the pinch and come back. And that pinch will remind them going forward that this was true. So there is no easy way of saying, when I tell a child something, they will follow it to the letter.
Sure.
But you will be guilty of not giving them the option. I always say, we choose from options. Whenever somebody says, "Hey, you have a choice," I say, first show me the options. Then I can choose. But if you don't show me the options, you cannot claim that I have choice. You are claiming, you are assuming I have this.
Sure.
I know those options.
Sure. Yes, man. I am truly excited today, man. And I think, in the past couple of episodes, I haven't used my famous word excited. But I say this because this has been probably a year in the making. The man sitting across me right now, if you're on YouTube or if you're on audio, is Abuti Daddy. Let me actually, not even Abuti, Daddy Mesh Kekana. Daddy Mesh Kekana is from Dads in the Picture. If you recall, on one of our episodes, we had the chairman of Dads in the Picture, Zibuse Kunene, where we spoke about morning thoughts. And today, man, we're going to capture the journey of Dads in the Picture and the journey of this man himself, Mr. Mesh Kekana. But more importantly, man, the work that he's been doing in supporting fathers. And, of course, the impact of fathers lies heavily on what the boys will do when they grow up, or the men they become. So one of our previous episodes was also speaking on how fathers are raising daughters. But of course, we're on Manned Up Conversations, so it would be criminal for me not to speak about how we're raising our sons. So without any further ado, I think this is the longest introduction I've done because I'm so excited. But Bramesh, welcome.
Thank you. You're making me excited.
Yeah.
So much appreciated. And thanks. And as you mentioned in the intro, Mesh Kekana. Fortunately, it's Kekana. But Nagibaloi.
Okay.
So,
okay.
And like you said, it's been a year in the making. A lot happens in a year. So yeah. So
yes, sir.
Excited to be here. Thank you.
Man, it's a blessing, man. We're just talking now about so many things, and a lot of what we spoke about now before we recorded kind of rekindled what we had spoken about when we were trying to set up this conversation. But before we get into that, let's detail a little bit about Dads in the Picture. And yeah, what sparked you to kind of start that movement?
I think it's a journey. I mean, life is a journey. So you go through life and, certain things trigger certain actions. Or reactions. Sure. And in my case, it was the kind of situations that I found myself in, where you're in a household and you've got brothers, but brothers in the context there, it's my aunt's child, it's my uncle's child. So we all, are a community that are raised by the grandparents. So it's blood, but it's not necessarily mom, dad, his grandparents. So you then realize that actually there's a difference, there's a divide, very subtle. The grandparents don't show the divide, but the actual parents, whenever they come back from Gauteng, Bafita Skrala, they show, the divide.
Sure.
Be it through the little sweets and stuff that they do, be it through the fact that one holiday, this one gets to get on a car and live with his parents or her parents, and you see this one coming back with a plastic bag, and you know that we getting dressed the same, we all get clothes for Christmas. But in this particular instance, this one is getting a t-shirt, and you're like, but why am I not getting a t-shirt? And you're like, but when my mom comes, he buys 3 for all 3 of us, and then now this one's mom comes and buys 1, and then he starts saying, but why is this? So that created that thinking that, but maybe something is amiss. Maybe something is not in the right place.
Man.
So fast forward, one is a young man. I think when the idea started, I had just started, biking as an activity, and then in conversation with other guys.
And
then
when you say biking, do you mean mountain or motorcycle?
No, just road motorcycle biking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
okay.
So we started a biking club.
Nice.
And through that, you can see the behavior of our young men and young, women. That, whoa, there's things that are not right in the right place.
Yes.
And it took me 10 years from there to conceptualize that's in the picture.
Sure.
A whole 10 years of sitting and saying, but where do I start? Yeah, so when I turned, I think it was 38, 39, that's when I started putting things in emotions.
Man.
13 years to date.
Man. So it's been a lot of groundwork. And, what I love about it is a lot of people that I find in this work is everything is rooted in our childhood, right? We often speak about childhood wounds or father wounds and that type of stuff and how much that kind of paves a path for us to kind of walk on, But speaking to that, there's also something that you mentioned earlier was planning, right? And for you to make it to 13 years, this is not easy work, as I've come to find. I'm like at the very, I don't want to say I'm at the very beginning, because it's 2.5 years now, plus a couple of months of research prior to it, right? But a lot of people I meet are like, oh man, you chose a very hard industry to work in. And sometimes I'm like kicking myself, why did I go there? But my heart led me here.
Yeah. Sometimes you go to bed and you've made a decision to say, nah, I'm enough. But then you wake up in the middle of the night and you're thinking about this particular So at the end of the day, it's like it becomes you.
Sure.
No matter how hard it is, you keep pushing. You know the attitude. Amachita men, they don't talk much when they're supposed to talk. Just to dispel the myth that men don't talk, men talk. If you find them at the back of a bakkie, going somewhere.
That's a conversation.
The conversation,
for the ages, man.
And they're all talking at the same time.
Yes,
if you find them at the stadium, soccer match, watching soccer and commenting, all of them, they are commentating. So, men talk.
And now, are these spaces that you talk about, the very informal spaces, are these the spaces that we should be taking the boys now, to now start bringing them into the conversation, just to show them how men kind of open up?
Look, the truth is, we can take boys into spaces, but the first space is home. The first space is where that little brain is being fed from birth. Some would want to argue and say actually from conception.
Sure.
Even before their birth. So if the ball is dropped during those critical years, then we want to take them into the spaces where we can actually coach them. But the journey, it becomes much more intense and much more, it requires us to be very determined. Unfortunately, with resources, it's a bit of a challenge. But we need to take young men into those spaces, because most of them, I wouldn't say they have lost the way. They never knew the way, so they haven't really lost the way.
Sure. We're just doing what we do, right?
There's a saying, you don't know what you don't know.
So then the journey falls back on the parents, as you're saying now. And there's something that I am reading currently, Kopano Ratele. Man, I forget the title of the book, but I'll link that in the show notes though. But anyway, in the book he talks about love needs, right? And in the chapter on love needs, he talks about men's hunger for love. And that hit home for me, because I thought about that and I thought, man, I grew up without my father, right? As I've mentioned on the podcast a lot of times. And I often think my mother loves me, man, and I know that, right? But
immensely.
Somehow there's this space inside of me that says, but like, my
favorite joke is, you know what, if creation, whichever way you define creation, be it God, be it evolution, be it whatever, if creation didn't see the necessity for a man and a woman to nurture a child, we probably would be laid as eggs to hatch and do our own thing. You know, there are certain animals, the day they are born, it takes them an hour or two to stand up on their feet. Right? Meaning within 7 days, they are already consuming the natural. They are either grazing or they're eating meat or they're doing that. Human beings are not like that. So which now begs the question, why are they not like that? They need the nurturing. And that nurturing comes from the two people.
Sure.
So, unfortunately, because of the way things are now, we're not going to force people to be man and wife. We're not going to force people to be mother and father. But we can take the two powerhouses and say the male influence and the female influence.
Yes, sir.
They need to be there for this young person to evolve and develop into what we would call matured.
Because it's all about maturity, Annie. But you also speak of this idea of getting us out of the house when we're a bit too young, right? And that stuck on me for so long. And I actually now kind of intentionally look at boys now and how they kind of enjoy being out there without really knowing what we're doing out there.
We were better off when I mean, I come from the era when and Hammanskraal where we still had cattle and goats. So we could pick up skills outside.
Sure.
So maybe that's why I'm sitting here. Maybe that's why we're having this conversation, because I picked up certain skills by being outside. And those skills included being able to can take care of the cattle, being able to can milk the cattle, being able to can help build water trenches and all of those things that really got me to develop a certain part of my brain. Now, fast forward 50 years now, you've got a young man who is growing up in a high-rise building. Literally, this young man is growing up in a one-roomed unit and the street. So the development I did through that environment, he is doing it through the street, which at every corner there's a drug dealer.
Man.
Right? At every corner there's a young man who's actually belittling, you know, somebody of the opposite sex or belittling another young man. And I mean, one day maybe, if not today, we'll talk about men-on-men violence. It starts very early. We bully each other before anybody else starts bullying us. So that in itself, it causes an added level of breaking, of brokenness. I mean, we had the bullying. I mean, if I own the soccer ball, I have to be in the game. If I'm not in the game, I take it. We had the bullying. If you're a bit chubby, I mean, you know.
Yeah, we don't
if you had a big forehead like
teams.
myself.
Sure.
I was Jomo Kenyatta. I mean, I don't even understand why anybody would want to call me that. But I was bullied. But the bullying was sort of cushioned by all the other things that I could do, all the other activities. The fact that when I went to school, I could find a male love in my teacher. You see, when I'm heading cattle, something happens to me, there'll be a man who's also maybe looking after their cattle who would look at me and say, young man, what's wrong? Come, let me help you. The fact that my uncle was my uncle. We'd wake up on a Saturday and he'd say, you know what, let's go. Not only this business of selling, you know, those porcelain ornaments. Go to the zoo. Then he'd throw me into that period that I spent with him. That's fathering.
Because we don't look at fathering like that. We look at fathering as and you have to raise them in this way. But the social fathering aspect is something that a lot of us don't consider. And we spoke about this on one of the episodes. I think I was on 702 with Oprimasang. And we're talking about, you know, just how much fathers or men have kind of let go of that role of saying her name. And I can see, you know, Tep or Tab or whoever, I can see a lot of potential in that boy. Let me actually step in there and kind of advise or mentor that boy. You know?
Absolutely. But just to jump onto that one, you used the phrase let go of the road. Did they let go? Did they know it? Were they nurtured in it? Did they feel it in their own lives? Or they didn't let go, they just don't know it? the one person who might have tried it, whom we heard about, was reprimanded maybe by the parents of that child.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. Okay, so then let's talk about the nurturing aspect then, right? I mean, with your own son or with nephews that are maybe that you know in your family that are not growing up with, a present, active, supportive father, how do you then go into conversations with them? And when that father or that mother says that, how do you counter that?
Well, for me, it's easy. Over the years, I've realized and acknowledged that there are certain things I cannot control. I cannot control the mother, biological mother or biological father, and how they prefer their children to be spoken to. So what I do is I take them out of that situation.
Okay.
It becomes me and the child.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of, hiking outings with my nephews and nieces and my children. I invite them. I've done a lot of camping with those guys. I've even done a lot of go to the car wash and pick up, I go to the local car wash where my nephew lives.
Yeah.
Then I pick them up and I go sit with them in the car wash. In a space where they are not looking as well, where's mommy, where's daddy?
Sure.
And I'm also not looking around to say who's going to stop me. I'm feeding them positive vibes. To an extent where they would themselves ask their own parent to say, hey, when am I visiting Uncle Opa?
Yes, man. Yes, man.
So you have to find a way. But, keeping to try and force your way in directly, it's never going to help. You're wasting your time for starters, and you're wasting your young person's time. Mom and dad, they all have everything figured out. So find a way around them. Even if it means calling them and saying, oh, Friday, I'm going to be in your area. What time is so-and-so leaving for school?
Sure.
And you pick them up and you drop them off at school. That's it. You know what's the saddest thing?
Man.
Saddest thing is that when this child is 22, 23, 24, 30, and they're about to be married, you, the uncle, are the first one to be called on. And you know nothing about this child.
Man.
And you still come to represent this child.
Man. And you didn't build any
You've got
bonds
no business
or
there.
anything. Sure.
You've got no business
Sure.
there. Because this child, when they have an issue, are they going to come to you? Why?
Because you've never
They don't
built
know
anything.
you.
Yeah. Man, that's a fascinating one. and one of the other things that I also think about when we talk about mentorship is, sure, I'm taking you out of your space, right? But then at the end of the day, you're still going to go back there. And the parents have this influence. And you also have a respect, a thing, an admiration. And anything that they say, you want to listen to, and then you guys are telling me this. So now, does that now contradict the teachings that,
It does contradict it. I think I would take that even and tag it with mom and dad who are not together, separated.
Sure.
When the son has to visit or the daughter has to visit the other parent, whichever parent they're living with. And they go, when I talk to the dads, I say, your role is not to correct what mommy has said or what the child narrates as what mommy does or says. Your role is to show the child who you are, where you stand. Yes, listen to what they're saying. Acknowledge that, you know what, my child, I hear, or mama mama will come right. Either we keep praying for mama, or we know that mama will come right. Maybe she's going through something.
Sure.
However, here's the thing. How are things at school? How are your friends?
Exactly.
How is this? How is that? And then they start. The thing is, you just ask one question that is neutral. They start telling you everything else that, and then you start saying, oh, okay, so you've got a friend. Do they drink? Do they smoke? Oh, no, they drink, they smoke. And you're like, but what's the point? Why are they doing this? How are they doing this? Now what do you want to do? Oh, I want to do this. For the what reason? Okay, I want a pair of sneakers for Christmas. Okay, good. Sounds like you have a plan.
Sure.
How much do you have?
Sure.
How much is a sneakers costing? okay, I'll meet you halfway. Bring the other money, I'll meet you halfway. And by the way, I still have to talk to your mom and dad. The child learns that, okay, fine, uncle can do certain things for me, but these things will be transparent at home.
They know.
And that starts building that. Because even when they talk at home, they say like, no, I told uncle I wanted a Nike techie. He said, he'll help me out, but give me half of the money, but he'll talk to you guys. So even them, they see, oh, we are featuring in this conversation.
Sure.
Half the time, they feel like you're trying to replace them.
And that's a dangerous place, man.
You can't replace them. I mean, they'll always be there. So try not to even talk to the child and reflect as though you are in charge of their life, whereas they are not your child. I mean, even your child, you're not in charge of their life. They still have to make their own decisions, right?
Yeah.
But what's important is that you must stay the course. Even if the aunt calls or, and says, you know what, why did you do this? Why did you say this to the child? Acknowledge that you were wrong, so that you still have that door open and continue to do your role. You're a role. Why are you an uncle? Why are you an aunt?
Sure.
If not to be part of the child's life. And by the way, you're part of the child's life. It's the same as fathers. You shouldn't be asking for permission. We are permission seekers, unfortunately. You want to parent through the mother. And you lose it all. As I digress to another topic.
Man. is that when we're talking about giving away our power now as fathers, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Power,
And I mean power with all due respect, because then we often get it confused when you talk about giving away your power, right?
Yeah, it's that. Like, children are a spirit on their own. They need to do what they need to do and follow their own course. All you have to do is make sure that in their toolbox of life, you have contributed. So that when they open the toolbox, they can find something that you gave them to manage life. Because they have empty toolboxes. They've got nice words that come out that seem like...
like they know what they do.
No, but
YouTube is there for them, man.
They're bouncing off. It's like responses. Even adults, when you talk to them, you can hear that, this response is from a soapy called so-and-so. This response is from a politician.
Sure.
The minister of this department or that department said children have rights. And you say, you don't have to argue about children having rights. All you have to ask is, what are those rights?
Man.
In this context, me and you are talking about you doing the dishes. You've got rights. Which line is talking about the dishes? Because you've got rights and responsibilities. Same way, moms have got rights and responsibilities. Same way, dads have got rights and responsibilities. Care is underpinning all of it. As a child, you must care for the space that you are given, which is your right. But the caring is a responsibility. As a parent, you've got the right to have a child. Taking care of the child is a responsibility.
Because there's this thing of sort of comparison, right? And, they say comparison is the killer of joy, man. Because we live in late, more or I'm wearing my whatevers, that my parents can afford. But then now I start mixing with other boys. And I see sort of, what's the accurate term for it? Peer pressure. There we go. Peer pressure is more prevalent in guys, even men, babahulu. Some guys your age are still falling a victim to peer pressure.
There's a tree. That tree is exposed to peer pressure every day.
Yeah.
But guess what? Its roots are keeping it standing. So we need to give the children the roots. And the roots must be firmly on the ground. Can't be sandy ground. It must be nicely, So they must be firm in the roots. The only reason why the street wins is because the home failed. That's it. Peer pressure, they'll come across it. But for them to say yay or nay, it's about that toolbox I talk about. It's about questioning themselves that sometimes it's not even about the toolbox. It's also about the fear. I mean, we grew up with fear. It's like, if I take that sweets, my mom said I mustn't take things from people. I'm not going to take it. Right? So that sweet could have been laced with drugs. So I'm not going to take it because my mom said. But nowadays, we don't need to do that threat.
Sure.
We just need to be the facts and say, people lace sweets with drugs. So your child, your polite child, when they're offered the sweet by a stranger, or even a friend who got it from a stranger, they'll take the sweet and it will click on them that, oh, by the way, in my toolbox, I was told some sweets could be laced with drugs.
Sure.
And then they'll start asking the question, where does it come from? Did I see this person purchase it? Or did this person just bring it with me for me? And then they'll be like, so thank you so much, so much. I just had a sweet. I'm going to have this one at home.
Polite no. But now, Parmesh, you know, some of these things are, I could argue that they're easier said than done, you know? Because then things happen and we're like, but they're not around, man. You know, they're high next week. I'm sure I can try whatever. I'll be fine by the time I go home. Then it goes back to the rooting, I guess.
When we grew up, they used to say, "Wana halela simo, mone." So when the child says, I want to touch that wood that's burning, within control, you might just want to let them touch it and feel the pinch and come back. And that pinch will remind them going forward that this was true. So there is no easy way of saying, when I tell a child something, they will follow it to the letter.
Sure.
But you will be guilty of not giving them the option. I always say, we choose from options. Whenever somebody says, hey, you have a choice, I say, first show me the options. Then I can choose. But if you don't show me the options, you cannot claim that I have choice. You are claiming, you are assuming I have the choice.
Sure.
I know those options.
Sure.
You are claiming that when I'm in matric, when a child in matric is choosing, it's grade 10, that's where they do subject choice. You are claiming that they know the subject fashion can be taken and made into a career. They know the subject history can be taken and made into a career. There are certain subjects that actually crop up later in those grades.
Yeah.
The subject IT can be made into a career. Meantime, everybody that lives around them, it's a policeman, it's a nurse, it's a doctor, it's a lawyer. So the options for them when they talk about a career are those four. So tomorrow when you see them being a lawyer and then you say, but you could have done IT, you could have done that. No, you are wrong. There was never an option.
Man. Oh, man, that's beautiful, man.
So it's easier said than done because the options need to be aligned.
Sure.
As long as they know there are the options. And by the way, parenting, you literally, by law, they give you 21 years. Well, they used to give you 21 years to parent a child. Now they've reduced it to about 18 years. And I think it's already on 16 years. So you have 16 years of rigorous mentoring. And that is the easier said than done. If you fail it there, then you can claim it's easier said than done. Your child, a 10-year-old child, needs to know that, you know what my dad thinks about marriage is this.
Sure.
10-year-old.
Sure. But if you've never had that conversation, then you shouldn't be surprised when it turns out however. Man, let's give these boys some more options, man, huh?
Let's give them options. I mean, you know, we as we were talking earlier, boredom is our biggest enemy. So they do things out of boredom, they experiment out of boredom, but if you keep them focused, here are the options. Come school holidays. Now we're going to school holidays.
Sure.
There's a young man out there who is knocking on restaurants, fast food places, looking for a piece job. There's a young girl out there who's knocking on people's houses and saying, you know what, I see you've got this, I can do 1, 2, 3.
Sure.
Knocking on shops.
Sure.
You know, dropping off CVs, very one-page blank. They already have that understanding that this is an option to fill the gap during school holidays.
Man. And when you talk about those type of things now, I get a bit worked up about that, you know. Because I think I even wrote it in one of the articles that, to grow up and neglect your hobbies is one of the most dangerous things that can happen to you, right? Because in your hobbies is where you experience a lot of joy, you experience a lot of growth, you experience a lot of experimenting, right? You never know what you will learn about yourself.
Self-identity.
Exactly.
Wound up in that.
And now men end up married, and then they realize, oh man, I'm not in a good place, man, for whatever reasons, right? And I always say, like you said earlier, or no, it's because guys are doing that because of boredom. They don't have hobbies. So all the time, Malele who doesn't have hobbies, and you're raising a son, how is that son gonna turn out?
Look, the energy of a human being, more so the energy of a man, more so the energy of a young boy. Yeah, we've got energy. It has to be spent. When I was in school, they used to reiterate the message that energy cannot be destroyed. So we need to take that energy and convert it into something and spend it. If we don't,
it goes in very weird places, huh?
It goes, everything. I mean, I'm just gonna be blunt. Even the sexual practices has got to do with the energy. And once you relieve that energy,
sharp.
Sharp. So we need to get into that habit and that culture. The culture hore timer, ma lady, weekend a month empty. You definitely cannot touch them because via society, via mafung every second weekend, via the graduation in the Chumitavona every.
Man.
They are busy with things that don't necessarily spend their energy, but they're busy with things that take them away from their children.
Man.
Because those are not the activities that you do.
It actually drains you more than anything.
I only attend probably one funeral every 3 months. Be it the society club, be it the neighbors.
Sure.
If there's a funeral neighboring and I've got a plan, operative word, plan, with my children, during the week. I'm gonna go there, dig that hole, go there, build that shack, go there, help them find a cow, go there, slice the cow on Friday evening. But on Saturday, if I'm gonna be hiking, I am going.
Sure.
I don't care who dies.
You've got a plan and you're sticking. Sure.
What is about funerals? Support, right? Didn't I support them? Didn't I support them more than you who walks in on a Saturday?
Yeah.
With your suit.
To just stand in a suit there.
I supported them. And I'll probably pop in on Sunday as well to help them pack. But because I had a plan.
Sure.
Not a dream.
Sure.
I mean, some of us, we walk around having a dream to take your children out for the movies. But no plan to support that. It's useless. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your children's. Before you know it, there'll be, you remember, there's a saying that children are not aware that as they grow, they are watching their parents grow.
Yeah.
So by the time your child is 16, it only now you've grown, now you're in your 40s, and now it becomes important to spend time with the child. But the child has created their own culture, old friends.
Man.
It's almost late.
And you can't do much there.
There's still something you can do,
right?
But I always say that's where you turn the tables now. You were leading the child. Now the child is a young adult. You need to let them lead you in a relationship.
Wow.
Very tricky.
Wow.
But now you need to say to them, you know what, I want us to do 1, 2, 3. When do you think you can make time? Trust me, there's no child who doesn't want to do fun stuff with their parent.
Man.
No, not even one. Even at 16, even at 18, even at 24. When I call my daughter who's 24 now and I say, next weekend we're going camping, she changes her schedules.
Sure. But man, I look at some of these, man, sometimes and but why does it seem like Matayama, man, they've given up, man, And going back to your point, you kind of have to let the child lead you in that case. Some men are just like, Ayahlanya.
And in a way, it makes sense, you know, being led by a child. But remember, this is greater good. You're the one who lost the time and the race by not being there when you were supposed to be there.
Sure.
So grow up.
Sure.
And have the maturity to find what works. This is what works.
Man. So I was at church this past Sunday after a very long time, you know. And a part of the reason is because I believe that, you know, the church has been very instrumental to me, you know, although I don't go as much as I used to. But I still maintain a prayer life. I still maintain a connection to God, you know, through Bible reading or through fellowship with guys, you know, very informative. And what religion or church has done for me is it's taught me something that the world, I believe, that doesn't really do anymore, right? That is teach the spirit more than the performative part of us, right?
Yeah.
The performative part of us being, you know, it's easy for us to train boys on spanning, be successful, but then the things that matter, you know, to make you a decent human being, we don't really teach those very well.
Well, do we know them? How do you teach something you don't know?
Because you were never taught by your father.
You're never taught by the culture. You're not never taught by the tradition. There are certain aspects of the tradition that actually are there to separate fathers from children. There's a practice I remember that I came across years ago in Rustenburg. I left Joburg very excited.
Yeah.
My cousin had just given birth to a beautiful baby boy. Same day, same evening, taxis, Rustenburg, get home. When I got to the door, there's this Sirokolo plant roots here. There's a stick there. And then I'm on some, hey, and then I was like, whoa, you can't go in there. And I was like, what do you mean? They say, no, you've been with women, you've done this, you're going to bring this upon the child. What? Load of horse manure. So that in itself, now it says, even if somebody calls and says there's a child in the house, their husband might be the same person who is prevented from interacting with the child immediately after birth. What kind of tradition is that? What if the same woman gave birth overnight and it's just you and her in the house?
Because you had to help, right? So now you're allowed in that case, but then once a child is born...
My point exactly. And then, whilst you're at that, you call work on Monday. Say, hey, I've got a son. They say, okay, your 3 days kicks in. Now apparently it's changed. 2 months, 3 months, whatever
like
it is.
A couple of months now, yeah.
There's a problem with that. We'll talk about that. But the 3 days has kicked in. During the 3 days, guess where the mom and the child are? At the hospital. You're just a shuttle between finding what they need from the pharmacy, going home, switching on the lights, coming back, sitting on the couch. You're not bonding with the child. So the 3 days has been one of those things that I believe were instruments to perpetuate this, to separate the fathers from the children. And then, then it goes to culture at home and tradition at home. That she must go spend the first 3 months at her mom's place. That's a nail on the coffin. By the time the child comes back in 3 months, she has learned so much about the child. She can change nappies, she can fix the bottle, she can bath the child. You are in grade R. And if she's not matured, she would want you to equal her at the level of service delivery for the child. Alternatively, she says you're useless. But she doesn't have the maturity to understand that you were never taught. Similarly to her, this is your first child.
Yes.
She had the whole army of women around her for 3 months. She had the whole army of nurses for 3 days that all equipped her. Nobody has equipped the man. But he's supposed to deliver. And yes, he grew up post-traumatic, so he doesn't know how to communicate his feeling of disappointment. He doesn't know how to communicate his feeling and his all true inability to take out their task.
Sure.
And there are certain science tests that were done that says, you know what, during birth, after birth, there are certain changes in the mother's moods, hormones, whatever you call it. So she herself cannot cope with him. But he's the one who's guilty, by the way.
Man.
And then after that, it's done.
Yeah.
When the boy is 12 or whatever, says something and the father doesn't go to the school play, you know what they say? He never wanted you. Even when you were young, he never wanted to touch you. He never wanted to change your nappy.
Because we don't know.
Systematic exclusion of fathers. It's huge. I mean, how many children were born while the mother, out of wedlock, while the mother is staying with their father, their own father, the grandfather to the child. So what does that mean? He can't father this child?
Okay.
Trust
He
me.
just hasn't been given the opportunity.
I was once told by a doctor, what do you call them? Gynecologist. We went for a visit and they were going into this other room, consultation. I was left in the waiting room. When he said, come, when I walked over to the consultation room, you know what the doctor said? He said, you can't come in here, you're not my client.
Wow.
For a conversation.
Wow.
And that is just before I started the movement gets in the picture. Because those are the things that added to that. To say, I want to be part of this child. I'm living with, for the last 6 months, I think we were 6 months pregnant then. For the last 6 months, I'm taking care of this bundle of joy and the mother. And my medical aid is going to be paying for this. They're going to be coming into my house. I need to know. I don't want to just be given a funny slip with some funny drawing, being told that that's the heart, that's the...
No. You want to understand.
I want to ask questions. But the doctors themselves don't have the maturity to understand that father involvement must be encouraged.
So a lot of these conversations around father absence, actually, it's more than just the father himself. There's a lot of institutional exclusion.
Institutionalized, 100%. And some people have reasons for it. The same thing about, when you marry a woman who's got a child out of wedlock, them saying that child belongs to the grandmother or the grandfather. They don't care about the child. They just care about two things. One, if they are wise, they care about the impact that the child could have on your relationship. Because there's always going to be my child.
Sure.
From her side.
Sure. Yeah, it's my
It's even
it's
worse.
not our.
It's even
it's
worse
mine.
when you have another child, then it's my child and our child. You see? Now,
man.
that's the one thing. The second thing is, some of them, because of the brokenness and the poverty, the child is an income. If I keep this child here, my daughter is going to send money. The two of them are going to send money. They're going to feed me. So we are up against a cliff, not a mountain, a cliff.
Yo. I know, Ramesh, you've seen it, man. You've seen it, you've experienced it. But there must be a solution, right? Yeah. You spoke now about this law that they're trying to change in terms of bringing fathers closer to their children, especially when you've just had a child. But then there's also a challenge to that, right? Because...
Huge challenge.
Are you still receiving the same amount of money?
Not even. Before we even get there.
Yeah.
This law, I do not remember any panel on any show sitting and discussing the implementation of that. The way they get excited about all this other nonsense. The same people who passed this law didn't put in a budget to do a national road trip.
Speaking to
reach every man,
yes,
and more importantly, every woman. Because women are gatekeepers of parenting. We can speak to fathers as long as we want, but she must open the gate a little so that when he comes, he gets through. So if I speak to the father and I don't speak to the mothers, the gate is still open. They're going to keep knocking and getting more frustrated and getting more frustrated and going to the lawyers and going to court, making things worse. much as the platforms we do are for men, it's not about men talking about mothers. No, it's about men taking their rightful space in the lives of children.
Yes. Yes.
But the issue of them, as I mentioned earlier, being permission seekers comes into play. The issue of mothers having been nurtured into thinking that fathers are not important in the raising of the child. The only importance is provision. The issue of communities frowning at a father who's carrying a newborn alone to a clinic. To this day, take a child to a clinic. They'll ask you where the mother is. Not for the sake of we just want to know the mother is in the life of a child, but for the sake of why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And these are the health professionals. You shouldn't be doing this.
The mother is responsible.
It's even worse. If you call your own mother and tell them you're taking the child to the clinic, listen to the response. Your own mother.
Okay, Musadi. So then, there's it's interesting to sort of listen to people who have done the work, right? And then to I guess look at responses on social media when you talk about the stuff. And you can see that also I believe that couples themselves are not talking about, back to your intentional word of planning, right? What are we gonna do? What's our plan that we can communicate to everyone else who's supporting or becoming part of our thing, so that we can tell them this is how we are choosing to do our thing, so we don't get pulled into different directions of what we're trying to do.
As opposed to a plan you're talking to, there's a script. There's a script that men and women follow. A script is like two sides. There's a men's side and there's a women's side.
Yeah.
Men grow up, play sport, go to school, find a job, paying job, find a beautiful woman, give her a child, build them a home. Women, we hope you're beautiful, grow up, find something nyana to keep you busy, maybe, retail nyana, catch that man.
Sure.
Who can give you a child and build you a home. Whether she goes and qualifies as a doctor, as an artist, as whatever, if that script hasn't been rewritten and a plan put in place, she will live up to that script. Similarly for the men, if they don't rewrite that script into a plan, when they get to the last tick box, I've built my wife who's beautiful and my child a home and I've got a good job. It's done. It's finished. It's highly. No kopilako.
What I know.
But remember, this thing has been engraved. He's 30. It's been engraved for 30 years in his head. There is not even a single show on TV that shows him how to address the script, because those shows are not sponsored. They have been written, but no company will sponsor it, because at the end of the day, that show will reduce juvenile delinquency. It will reduce teenage pregnancies. It will reduce drug abuse. It will reduce poverty. It will reduce, having multiple relationships and having children out of wedlock. It will reduce so many things that the actual GDP
depends on
will be impacted. The actual share price of that soft drink, that energy drink, depends on it.
But then we are sponsoring. What are we sponsoring? Date My Family.
Well, we're actually not sponsoring Date My Family. We're sponsoring the effect of Date My Family. We're sponsoring the fact that we want people for 2 hours. If Date My Family, I've never watched it, so I'm assuming it's 30 minutes.
Yeah.
The first hour before...
I'm speaking like I watch it.
The first hour before Date My Family, there are people who are actually screaming at taxi drivers. This is the evening, you're going home. So, you already, if it plays at 6, from 5 o'clock, you already captured into this And everything about it, it's already you're thinking, okay, kinale 20 rand, let me buy that fried chicken so that I don't have to cook because I want to watch this thing. And then there's the hour, and then the half an hour. Half an hour after that, you're on the socials about that is what they sponsor.
Wow. Jeez, man. But that is infiltrating.
And you must look at the adverts
Sure.
that come with that show. Look at them very closely. If there's adverts. Now they've even gone worse. Previously, we used to have adverts as in the show will stop, there'll be an advert. Now they're putting billboards in the show.
So then do you feel like that sort of dampens the work that we do, you know?
Look, it does dampen them, but because we end up being a needle in the haystack. But isn't that what it's about? You as an individual making the change.
Sure.
In the corner.
Sure.
Your area of influence. Make that change. I always say, I've got sons and daughters now. You've got a son or a daughter?
No, I'm not yet.
When you have a son
and
my daughter, and we raise them, and tomorrow they meet, and they decide to have relations, they must meet at a matured level. Meaning, I must do my job. You must do your job. And then they would be the light. They would be the needle that shines for others to come. They will create a generation that is not broken. It's all about me and you. Nobody else. Not even your partner. Not even my wife. It's all about me and you.
Yes.
She's doing what she needs to do. You better do what you need to do.
And let everything else take control of itself. Yeah.
When tomorrow you meet, sometimes you get 5 minutes in a queue at some takeaway place.
Sure.
Buying 30 things that you think are nice. And you get this young person for 5 minutes and you can open your mouth. Or maybe they comment and then they say, Mara, why this queue?
Yeah.
But and you can actually take them and say, maybe. But you know where they come from. Do you know what time they knock off here? Do you know how much they earn? Do you know how much of their earnings goes to transport coming here? You know the struggles they're going through. It's a conversation that wakes him up. He might not admit now,
but you'll think about it.
You know what they say? You can do whatever you want to say.
Man.
But only when the student is ready does the teacher appear.
Yes. So our work is just basically planting seeds. That's it. Oh, man.
That's it. So that they can go and Google and say, you know what? I met this guy, but what he said, I think I've heard it in one episode of Mend Up Conversations. Let me go look for that episode. And only then. There are things that I say now that somebody who watches and listens to this episode in 20 years, only then will they catch it.
Yes, sir.
The same person.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes people will think I'm arrogant, and I say, I'm telling you this today. It might take 10 years of your maturity to understand what I'm saying.
Well, I make that example with YouTube. I always say the most popular videos are not from yesterday. They're not from a year ago.
There you got it.
They're probably 10, 20 years old. Even 30 years old. But only now we're understanding those, Similarly, the wounds that our fathers carry, right, from the past that we've been through as a country. I won't just talk about black people. I'll talk about the country in general, right? Black, white, Indian, all of us.
Oh, yeah.
We are now feeling that right now.
Yeah.
Seeing the stuff that we're talking about, stuff that fathers were not taught, the scripts that women are following, the scripts that we're following as men. So we are coming sort of full circle for me, right? But what I love, more importantly, is they say it's the age of Aquarius, if you want to go that deep into it, right? That now we are seeking the truth, and the truth that relates to our personhood, right? Our spirit, anything that brings us alive, more than what let me say, how much I can make. Or sure, that's still there. You know, the influences, Sabo, Andrew Tate, or whoever those powerful people are.
Yeah.
But I still genuinely believe that there are people, when you actually have conversations with them, you realize that, yeah, this person might look like this on the outside, but then internally, everyone is wishing for that betterment, that better version of themselves.
100%. There's a challenge. I'm holding this glass here, right? If you come to me and you give me that glass, I can take it and hold it.
Yeah.
But if somebody comes and says, here's a third glass, I'm going to need to put one down or find a nice way of, and if they can't stack, then I really need to give up one. So as a 30, 40, 50-year-old who suddenly comes across this information that is building you.
Man.
Trust me, your glass is full, your hands are full. You're gonna need to take something out. But we want to still maintain the garbage. Illustration of a building. When they build a tower, there's a saying, how high you want to go depends on how low you go. If you want to build a single-story house, you can build a 0.5 meter foundation. If you want to build a double-story house, you're going to need a meter foundation. If you want to build a triple-story house, you're going to need to go down more. So we need to heal. Some of us are going on the path of acquiring and reinventing ourselves, but we are forgetting the healing part.
Yes, sir.
There's a nonsensical saying that leave the past. Unfortunately, the past won't leave you.
It stays with you.
So go and address the past. Don't go there and build a campsite in the past. No, but go address the past. So that you get rid of the one glass.
And you hold on to the one that you need. I'm on probation, man. Man, I hope you're listening to this, man. And, you know, for yourself, I think I always say on these episodes that these are conversations that you genuinely have to listen to by yourself, right? Sure, you can listen to with people, but I believe that if you listen by yourself and you kind of get the understanding for you, and then you can, you know, go and, hey, let me share it. Let me speak to someone about what I heard.
Absolutely.
And then you can sort of build on that, right?
Absolutely.
But there's something also, Prameshwari, we are too scared to get things wrong, man. And that's what keeps us from talking about certain subjects. I mean, I come on this podcast most times, and I'll say I'll read stuff, I'll prepare. But half the time, whatever I've read and prepared doesn't really resonate with whatever we're talking about. And I'll go into speaking about what comes from my soul, you know?
Look, you're a very complicated being. You've got a soul, as you mentioned there.
Sure.
The soul that has a role in your life. The soul that has brought some purpose in your life. The soul that has baggage itself.
Yes, sir.
So before you can actually take up on that soul, you need to have that soul lose the baggage. Otherwise, that soul brings the baggage.
Yeah.
So it's that process.
Sure.
You find a 5-year-old child cheating on another child. You find a 2-year-old, 12-month-old child Atipa Asoba, their sibling, who's a newborn.
The soul.
You understand? So you need to then get them out of that. But we want to do it physically. Slapping them and doing that. Can't you need to talk to them. When you talk to a child, you're talking to their soul. They say you must talk life into everything.
Yes, sir.
We're good at doing it to plants. People sit there and polish plants and talk to plants. I don't know what they say, but we don't talk to our children.
How do you have a beautiful garden but an ugly soul, man?
Talk to that child, talk to the soul in the child, so that when the child is grown up to be an adult, they can talk You know, and they can also engage with their soul because they know they've got a soul.
Man. Ramesh, man, I want to keep this going, but I know you got stuff to do. But this is definitely not the last of our conversations. There's a proposal that I've kind of sent your way. And yeah, more than, I think, talking on the podcast, there's work that we need to do in communities. And I have now kind of taken it upon myself to now start sharing conversations with people who, I see every day.
Absolutely.
And there's this thing that one of the professors, I think Emaloselanga, who said something that, we were at an event and we're sitting in a very posh place and we're eating good food and, we're having conversations about, all these stats are saying this, that, and the next. But unfortunately, the people we're talking about are not even here. So what are we actually doing?
They're not even here. And you must be very, very, we have to be intentional about what we do. And yes, we can talk about people who are not here. But then we need to be aware of the things that influence them, even if they were to get a message. Even if they were here, do they have the message? I get fathers that come to the camps with us to escape their life at home.
Wow.
I'm prepared to go camping, take the children camping, simply because I want to be away from the mother. Right?
Man.
So, at the end of the day, the numbers of fathers that would join us at camp, it's very small because they do not prioritize their well-being and the well-being of their children and the relationship of their children, because in the script, it didn't appear. And in the marketing, it doesn't appear. Have you ever wondered why a news broadcast slot is smack at dinner time?
So that's when the family's together?
Biggest distraction. Ever wondered why the soapies are smacked at dinner time?
So rather,
if you were to take this podcast and give it to a network, TV network, they'll put it at 3 p.m. during the day.
No, that's a fact.
Because they understand the dynamic. The people we want to influence are now at work, slaving away. Now when they get home, we want to put them into this narrow channel and give them 5 days of a posh life that we don't even understand how those people on TV attained. Feed them this culture that we want them to be. So it's a system. So in our little corners, let's do what we can. In our little corners, let's come together. And yes, even if you come together and they are not there, those who are there are ambassadors on a daily basis. To talk to everybody whose life they touch. As that's in the picture, we say, every child whose life you touch, interactions for 1 second, the one who you meet by the corner street, for that 1 second, you are their father figure.
Man.
Be one.
Be one, man. Oof. Ramesh, now you kind of took the question away from me, man. But every episode now, I close with something, one action or a word or an act or something, right, that we can do as men to kind of further the cause for ourselves, right, to do better or to be better, We're in Men's Month right now, and I guess the slogan or the marketing campaign for this year's International Men's Day is Zero Suicide. And we know that suicide is also one of those things. And that's why there are a lot of conversations around mental health, right? So what would that be for you, man?
Suicide is a symptom of a mental health issue. Mental health is a symptom of an unaddressed issue. As a man, that issue that you haven't addressed, that issue that you feel you can't ask your father about, that issue that you feel you can't ask your mother about, take a pen and paper, write it down.
Yes.
Nicely, write it down, rewrite it, write versions of it, write until you get to a point where you feel this I can present.
Sure.
When you approach your father or your mother, you should have it on paper. Because remember, when you present this issue, they might go off the handles. But you must be able to bring them back to this issue. If you haven't written it, you will never get the answer you want. So learn to write your issues and take them head on.
Man.
So your mom might be angry with you for 2, 3, 4 weeks, even a year, but you would have asked the question. Your father might be angry with you for 10 years and decide not to talk to you, but wherever they are sitting, they will know that my son needed to know this, and I'm being unfair to my son. And they'll come back to you in the most surprising of ways. And be patient. If you are 40, they've been keeping maybe this secret for 40 years.
Just be
They're not
patient.
gonna let it go overnight.
Oh man, that's wonderful, man. Guys, you know, I love what Pramesh is saying here, because I'm a big believer in writing. You don't have to broadcast stuff. It's not about putting it on social media. Sure, for those of you guys who love doing that, by all means, go ahead and do it. But I think inner work is not for the public, you know? Or at least that's what I believe. I don't wanna
Personal enrichment.
Exactly. I don't wanna impose that on you. You know, I might get some guys who might say, "Alright, KG, why are you saying that?" I'm like, hey, to each his own, you know. But please, man, keep on doing your work. There's a lot of healing we need to do, as Pramesh said. There's a lot of unlearning we need to do. But there's also a lot of self-compassion that we need to develop. Absolutely. You know. And man, just be patient with yourself, man. You know. A lot of us are still figuring things out, right? A lot of us maybe have it together, but if you do have it together, then man, pay it forward to a friend of yours, pay it forward to a brother of yours, because we can be stronger together.
Yeah.
I know it sounds very cliche, but it is a fact. You know, you can only go as far as the people around you, right?
True.
Man.
100%. Thank you.
Man, this has been a truly informative and inspiring conversation for me. I hope it has been the same for you. Please, man, by all means, while you're listening, head on to the show notes. We're gonna have all the links to Pramesh. You can connect with him. You can contact him for a conversation if you need. There's a lot of camps that Dads in the Picture host. If you wanna maybe join in and bring your son, do you do it for daughters as well?
For the child.
For the child.
And it doesn't have to be your own child.
Man.
It can be your nephew, it can be your niece, you might be a pastor and there's 3 children that need a father figure. Bring them along.
Man, we're gonna put all of that in the show notes, guys. So please make sure that you do the right thing. If you don't have hobbies, man, and you're looking for a space to just connect with fathers and learn some hobbies yourself, Dads in the Picture is there for you. And yeah, man, peace and love, guys. It's been an awesome pleasure. We're out of here.